Evening, everybody. 6 o'clock here in Mountain Standard Time. Should be 8 Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to make a prediction right now. The Edmonton Oilers are out. They down 2-0. I haven't watched a single thing from the first round. Oh, there it is. Wes is. Give that a second. He said he was going to be late, but. Oh, he's in the truck.
In the truck, yeah. I just got home, but I got my 3 boys in there, so I'm like, you know what? It's going to be easier to sit in the truck.
Listen, I know that's all about. Those days are behind me, but I know what it's like to have little boys run around like madmen.
Yeah, I saw you just got one married off.
Yeah, both my boys are now married men.
Nice.
My oldest daughter is married, and so yeah, there's 2 more to go.
Okay.
And then we'll see. You never know. But
you never know.
Yeah, the next one is 22. She's going back to school in the fall to finish up her basketball career, and then I have one that's going into grade 12. So
that's awesome. Yeah, my oldest is 13, so I got a little while, I think, still until I got to worry about that stuff.
We used to call that, and if my boys are listening or anybody's listening, we used to call that the dangerous decade.
Really?
That's where a lot of shit can go down between 13 and 23.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think.
So I wish you luck.
I appreciate it. Since I got just 3 boys. I am hoping there's a little bit of a shift to where it's like more dad related, having to deal with that instead of mom related. I think she could use a little break as they're entering that decade.
I won't lie to you. Having, we just Isaiah just got married yesterday. Both of my boys come from a long line of mama's boys.
Okay.
And so, you love your mama no matter what.
For
I
sure.
think you do. You should love your mama no matter what. So
yeah,
you'll have to
respect her. So
yeah, you'll have to break up some fights. There's no doubt about that if you're not doing it already.
Yeah, not too bad, but it's getting there. It's getting there for sure.
So 13, and then what?
So Jones is 13, Solomon is 10, and Anders is 6.
Nice. Yeah. Where do you get Solomon from?
Solomon?
Is that some legacy name?
So, I'll give you the short version of the story. We were told twice before we had him that he was going to be a girl.
Yeah.
So literally in the hospital after he comes out, that's when we find. So we had a girl name ready. We had girl clothes, everything ready for a girl. So then we kind of felt under the wire for like picking a name. We're like, well, we don't even have a backup boy name. It didn't cross our mind we'd need to.
Yeah.
So we got that one. We went with the Bible name because we're like, well, we want something that's not trendy, something that's been around for a while. We don't want to regret it in a couple years. And we wanted run into a lot of other ones like that already. So
no, that's awesome. I sort of did the same thing with Isaiah. The truth be told, my grandmother was so impressed because my boys' name are Peter and Isaiah.
Okay.
She's like, oh, they're so biblical. And I'm like, well, it's actually after Isaiah Thomas, the basketball player, and Pete Mahovlich, the basketball player. But I did tell my grandma that. So
it could be both.
She thought it was just it's both. So whatever you wanted to make it. Yeah, somebody asked, I do have some Irish in me. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Goes back a little ways.
Yeah.
It's actually it's a tap manufacturer. It's one of
okay. Nice.
McGuire. It's I think they're under the Sloan brand if I remember right.
Okay. Cool.
There you go. Yep.
There you go.
So I'll give the quick intro. You DM me, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and with a burning topic in your head, something you wanted to talk about, something that's affected your life as a tradesman, and you just thought you wanted to sort of, shall we call it, air your grievances?
Yeah, everyone gets in that mode sometimes. I think honestly, I want to just be educational about it more so than grievances. And I need a disclaimer because I'll get called out otherwise. I am not a tradesman. I've been in the trades
Oh,
for a little over 3 years, but I don't have my plumbing license. I've always been on the management side of it, so I know I'll
okay.
get called out if I can't go
She's
around saying I'm a
start.
plumber if I'm not.
Not here. You can't.
Not
You know
anywhere.
that.
Not anywhere. Yeah, I found that out. One of the first things I found out when I got into the trades. So I actually bought. I have a couple. My grandparents gifted me because they don't know the nuances of it. So one of my birthdays after I was in this industry, they gave me a belt buckle that says plumber on it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I can't wear that around. That's not okay. But I'll wear it at work sometimes just to bother people.
That's right.
But
You
yeah,
should just put a big M in front of it. I manage plumbers.
yeah, man. There you go. Manage plumbers. Yeah. Which you know what? There should be an award for that too.
I listen. Having been on both sides of that equation, I don't. I absolutely concur with you.
Yeah.
It's a dog's breakfast managing that. Imagine the management department trying to look after those guys.
Yeah. I love it
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
It's been really rewarding. But yeah, so the short version is the topic I had in mind is I was just reaching out to you, asking you, first if you owned your company and just about private equity. And I definitely have been in the area of grievances phase, but honestly, right now, I just want to be more so educational about it because I didn't know what I didn't know through the first
Right.
iteration. And the first
Yeah.
thing I want to say is if you build a company from scratch, you mortgaged your house, you made no money for the first 5 or 10 years, and you want to sell and get out of it and have a legacy of your own and not like, I'm not
Yeah. Yeah.
against that. I'm
Yeah.
all for it. I just think there's some education gaps out there as far as what it can mean to the people that are left in that situation. So
That
what
are
are
left behind, so to
yeah, that are
speak.
left behind, so to speak. Yeah, exactly. And it's been coming up so often. I've been educating myself a lot about it. I was in a continuing ed class for my current company just the other day, and the instructor kept referring to private equity companies, even though this was just about lead paint remediation. That's what the course was for. But the reason he was bringing it
Oh,
up is
really?
he was telling the story of how he got to be teaching this class, and he's like, well, I sold the first construction company I had to a private equity group, and it went south for me, and I ended up getting booted out of it, and I didn't realize it. He's like, and then I started another company, and I sold that company again. And he's like, and a different thing happened, and I didn't end up having to say in it. And he's like, someone was like, oh, so would you sell if you could do it over again? And he's like, no, I would not. But we're all just kind of like, well, you did it twice though, so that's kind of like,
Right.
it sounds like
Proof's
if
in
you
the
brought it
pudding,
on
right?
yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But just some short versions about what that is as far as education goes. You know, people are like, well, what's wrong with it? It's to make money. Of course, it's to make money. Private equity groups want to make money. They're not buying the company with the intent to be, pro bono or just make everyone's lives better. And in the end of it, I think I heard a really cool talk with you and Dennis the other day. We're all in it to make money. Like, we're not just doing this because we're independently wealthy and we have free time. Like,
Yeah.
I think you or Dennis was like, charge what you're worth because you're worth it and you deserve it. Like, you
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
through your apprenticeship, you got your card, you're doing work that a lot of people are scared to do or would never do. You're
Yeah.
worth what you can charge. Like, you did a lot to get to that point. So they're to make money. Traditionally, the ways they make money is efficiencies or consolidating. So what does that mean? A lot of times what that means for the company that's left behind is, do you need to have a CSR in the building, or could you centralize all the people answering the phones out of one hub that serves all the private equity groups, like in the Midwest, for example, or even in
Yep.
another country? So historically, when private equity takes over, the jobs of the existing company, the total jobs available go down by at least 12%, just on average. That's not specific to the trades. That's just data around everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that historically never happens is it's like, well, the efficiencies make it better, which is true, but those efficiency savings don't get passed on to the employees or the customers. They're not
Right.
saving money by centralizing HR or the people who do the bookkeeping or the people who answer the phones. They're not taking the savings from centralizing that and saying, now let's pay the leftover employees even more money, or
Yep.
let's charge less to the customers. That's going to the PE group, which again, their purpose is to make money. So you can't hardly fault them for it. It's just things you don't know what you don't know. And I wish I would have known it earlier. So that's why I'm just trying to educate. And I see it happening across the industry so much. I would say in the past 3 months, between 60 and 70% of the people I've talked to, because recruiting is part of what I do for my current role, I always say, well, why do you want to leave your current job? Because the last thing I want you to do is be like, oh, well, I hate that they use Service Titan. And I'm like, well, we use Service Titan too. So don't come over here then. Like, that's not going to make you happier. I like to find out why. 60 to 70% of the tradesmen tradespeople I'm talking to say their company got bought by private equity and they don't like it there anymore. So in our market in particular, it's very, very prevalent. It's happening a lot, but people are leaving, and the company.
Where are you exactly?
I'm in the Portland, Oregon metro.
Oh, so you're close to So you're close to Dennis, or whatever.
Close to, yeah. He's in Seattle area, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, just a couple, 2 or 3 hours, and it's coming up in the Seattle market too.
It's from what I've heard, just for my 2 cents, is it's becoming a new thing. Like we talked about sort of there a couple weeks ago, is that which goes to our previous conversations with Dennis and with everybody, that people are starting to understand the value that trades have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the outside world is like, holy crap, there is nothing but money to be made here. And which is piqued their interest to invest in these things. And like you said, to make money. I've been approached a couple of times and, came up with some astronomical number just to sort of say, yeah, you're going to buy me? Like, I will never work again. Yeah. And, it's,
you would deserve that.
Yeah, I would, it's $8 million in cash and that's it. You can take it over. Like, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, I know, because it's my family name. I built it. It's a big thing. So if you want it, you're going to pay for it. But, and I think that's what Dennis did, is with his company, with Gene Johnson. I don't know the specifics, and I guess the next time him and I chat, I'll bring it up. But he sold a year ago, or 2 years ago, and was out in 3 months, and his partner was out in a year. They kept her around for a little bit longer, but maybe speak to why your lead paint dude how he got shafted.
Yeah. So for him, again, this is why I do have grievances. I'm not going to pretend I don't have grievances, but
that's why we're here, brother. Let him out.
Yeah. But it's more so about education, because the first time he didn't know what he didn't know. He just didn't realize till it was too late that he didn't really have a say anymore. Yep. And he's like, I was technically employed by them, but I no longer get to make the decisions about how my businesses ran. And like, it's kind of like, yeah, you're in these meetings, but it's just like, you're just a figurehead in these meetings. You don't have any say. You don't have any power. You can't run the business as you see fit. And, depending on where you're at in your career, what your goals are, or even just your type of person. Some type of person's like, great, I don't care. Like, I'm getting paid. That's fine by me. Some people can't abide it. And, sometimes you don't know which one you are until you're in that situation. So that was his first one. I think for the one for me, because I'm not an owner either. So I'm not a tradesman, not an owner. I'm someone who considered myself lucky enough to have found my way into the trades. And I tell my 3 boys regularly, if you don't know what you're doing by the time you approach your senior year in high school, I know what you're going to do until you figure it out, which is get into an apprenticeship.
Yeah. That's exactly what I did with my boys. They're like, well, we're not sure. I'm like, well, then you're coming to work with me. Good. And when an angel of God tells you to do something else, then you listen to him. Until then, you're listening to me. Yeah. And it just sort of unfolded the way it did. So.
Yeah, exactly. Which is awesome. I think, like figuring out, you kind of need your own lawyer to check all what exactly are the terms of the sale. How long do you have to be involved? What changes to change whether you get to call shots or not? Because some of the deals are made that are like, hey, if everything stays how your 3-year trend.
Sorry, gents. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that was me or him. It must have been me, because it literally just kicked it out. Didn't like what we were saying. Sorry, man.
There we go.
Yeah, all good. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, we were onto something maybe.
We do have a bit of a storm going on, so maybe it just decided. That's enough of that.
That's
I don't
enough of
know.
that.
Sorry about that.
No, you're all good. It's probably good because they made me lose my train of thought, so I had to think again. Anyway, knowing the terms is important, just like we run into with customers with exclusions or whatnot. So
Yep.
when they can get involved and when you do or don't get to keep making decisions.
I can't.
Another common
I
thing.
can't.
Go ahead.
I can't believe that someone would do that. Like as a business owner, you wouldn't. I mean, I would have 3 lawyers check it. You know what I mean? Look at this. Look at this. I'm happy to pay
Yeah.
you all for your time. Please go through this and tell me exactly what, in plumber terms, layman terms, what this means so that I understand what I'm getting involved with. Because if you decide, you know what I mean? Like you said,
Yeah.
oh, Jimmy quits and I lose control of my company, that sucks, right? Like
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. And I
anyway.
think that points to another good thing that is a strategy that here's an upside for sure. It can be an upside. A lot of times the way it's structured is the seller is able to give shares or equity to however many of their existing employees they want. And that kind of makes all of you more invested in the success of it, right? And
Yep.
gives the longtime employees a real incentive to stay on. Because a lot of times what is common is it's like the guy or woman built the company from scratch. No one in their family is interested in carrying it on.
Yep.
I mean, you put your blood, sweat, tears, and life into this. You don't want it to just peter out because you're done with it.
Yeah.
And that can be a cool option for getting your existing employees really interested in trying to make it successful, trying to work with the group, trying to figure out how to make things better for everybody. That's definitely an upside. But another thing you'll run into is that, maybe this is fine print, or maybe it is, again, you don't know what you don't know. A lot of times that's not the only thing the private equity group is dealing in, right? They own lots of other stuff besides this trade company.
Yeah.
They own software
Exactly.
companies, healthcare companies, whatever. Well, what you'll find out is, okay, yeah, well, we're not telling you how to run your business, but you have to switch your retirement plan to this group. Well, okay, why?
Right.
Well, because we also, through a subsidiary, own this retirement fund, and we can invest it how we want. So we want all the assets of your company into this fund, and then we get to run that too. Maybe it's not a big deal. You don't usually lose your retirement. It's yours, but it's just a transition you didn't know you had to make. You have to switch your timekeeping software. And it turns out, if you do some research, that the private equity group through a subsidiary also owns that timekeeping software. You're like, this software's, I've never even heard of it. It doesn't seem like it's that good. Oh, they own it too. That makes sense why I'm switching to it.
It's whatever,
so
that vertical integration, right? That's what they're looking to do, is like, drink, we're all under this little roof, and
yeah,
whoever the CEO is gets to make all those decisions, right? Is how it shakes out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's just education and awareness I'm wanting to bring to it. Like, all those things aren't necessarily bad by default. They can work out, but I think knowing what the end goal is can help people be a better part of it. You know what I mean? Like, just say, hey, we also own this software company and we're trying to be competitive in the timekeeping software field, so we're going to use it here. Okay, great. Thanks for explaining that to me as an example. So other benefits can be resources. It can definitely help eliminate your operational debt and give you a lot more cash flow as a company in a way that you couldn't do potentially without that. So that's a potential upside.
That's what they come in. That's their sell point, right? Is we got all these resources behind us. You'll never worry about your paycheck again.
Yeah.
You'll never have to budget you will, but we got millions of dollars behind us. So let us help you run your company and take it to the stratosphere.
Yeah.
If I'm a Tony Robbins guy, the game has changed, brothers. I'm here to help you. Just fucking do what I tell you to do, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, and the hype man thing can definitely be a put off. The culture clashes can be for real, depending on where the company is headquartered versus the company that they're purchasing. And it depends on what your end goals are. I was, shout out for you, and I think Cleaner Magazine, but I'd read that article before, but I was, freshening up to prepare. And, it's cool to see, it was impactful to see how important like private owned companies still are to their local economy, and to see the decision to, instead of growth at all costs, losing control of the quality, having, especially for you, like your actual name. Like I've always been proud of where I worked. I like to say I work at this place, but it'd be different if it was my name, right? You're
Yeah.
like, I can't have my name on that quality. I can't spend so much of my time just hearing customers complain about how things are going. Like, so you made, that intentional decision, if the article represented it right,
Yep.
to like, hey, I'm going to do what I do. I want to stay I want to stay a specific size, and I want to be excellent. Which is super cool.
Yeah. That was sort of the byproduct of what happened. I mean, I'll be perfectly frank. Like, I was losing control of my life. You know what I mean? Like, it was like I was dealing with other people's problems, which were creating problems in my own life. That was, over a decade ago now when I made that change. So, my two boys are, 15 and 17. So they're just in the middle of, like we started off that conversation, in the middle of their dangerous decade of,
Yeah.
what kind of decisions are they going to make? The home life was it was just turmoil, right? I'm like, so I hate my work life because I'm dealing with problems that other people create for me. It's creating problems in my home life. So I really have no little respite. And, that sounds dramatic, but,
I mean,
really,
it's true.
because, yeah, but it's like, it's your world, right? Like everywhere I went was sort of stress
Yeah.
and problems and, you know, it turned me into a good problem solver. But at the end of the day, I'm like, something's got to go, and I'm not going to cut off my family. So I got to figure out what to do with the business. And that, when I cut it all, and it was a really stressful year to deal with sort of the cleanup of that. But at the exact same moment, it was way less stress because I was in control of everything. Like there was no one left to blame. Like if I didn't feel like going to work that day, which never happened, but or I went to work every day, but if I didn't show up somewhere, I knew I was getting a call and why and how I could deal with it. Like there was no sort of surprise attacks. I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna bitch and that guy's gonna bitch, and I can deal with that one. I can deal with that one, and move ahead, and still find some time, to get back into the family life, which at the end of the day is what it's all about, right? Like
Yeah.
why are you doing that if you can't better your family's circumstances and be a better provider, a better father, all that stuff if everything at work is just shit. So,
Yeah.
but you're right, to speak on the business side of it, it really helped me zero in on just making sure the service that we provided is like 10 times better than anybody else. Like magnanimously so.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's really paid off with now the boys on board because they've sort of, tuned into that sort of a mindset. And, we've never been busier. We've never been more profitable. It's just, it's how it should have been the first time. You know what I mean? Or like everybody,
Yeah.
everywhere I go, they're like, "Hey Baker, how are you, man? Good to see you. Come fix our shit. We're gonna call you next week. We've got a big project going on." Like everywhere we go, or we get phone calls out of the blue. Dude, I heard great things about you, and I'm like, yeah, well, most of them are true, but I am a dick,
Yeah.
and you will pay for me, but we will
Well,
fix your
they're like,
shit.
we heard that too. We heard that too.
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
there.
and that's literally what they're like. Yeah, no, we heard that, and you can fix it though. I'm like, I can fix it,
Yeah.
and so it's been, just sort of living through all that stuff in real, like it's, the window of my life. I'm like, yeah, it was worth it. It was difficult, but it was worth every second. And just to speak specifically about your private equities or those venture capitalists, their issue, they just want to make money. So they transition from we want to provide service to we need to make money, which means we're not training our techs, we're turning them into salesmen, right? You're here to sell. You need to sell X amount of, widgets a day or a week compared to the hours that you build out, or you're going to get cut, right?
Yeah. And I think most of my background is sales. I'm the kind of person who looks at sales as just, maybe people be like, well, of course a salesman would say that. It's solution problem. It's finding solutions to people's problems.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about trades is like, this is not like, oh, an extra pair of shoes I don't need anyway. Like, this is something critical to people's lives. And if you do it, ethically and honestly, there's lots of options you can give them. Do you want me to just fix this old toilet? Or like, do you want and have it last another year or so? Or do you want to just solve the problem now? Which, heads up, if I do try to solve the problem, the flange might need to be replaced too. Like, who knows what's going to happen once I get the toilet off of there. And it's just educating them, letting them know, but it's still their choice. And lots of customers say, hey, can you just try to put a new flapper in? Yep, I can do that for you. But if it doesn't work, I'm still charging you for that. That's not free. You know what I mean? Like, I still spent the time and built the options and provided the service. But the training is what's critical. And I agree with you. And that's where we're losing these shops who want to reinvest into the trade. I think I heard you talking, maybe it wasn't you. It's going around a lot right now because the rate of, take plumbers, for example, leaving versus incoming is going to be a huge problem for everybody very soon.
It's 50 to, it's 50 to 9. So every 50 that leave, 9 come in, and one of those is a woman or is a minority.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, the numbers are crazy.
Yeah. And if people think plumbing's expensive now, wait till there's even less plumbers. Like, man, that's not the industry's fault. It's not the industry's fault. Like, it's supply and demand. It's supply and demand. It's like, if you want to get a Coke at McDonald's, it's $1.25 because they have an endless supply and there's millions of locations. But if you want to drink a Coke at the basketball game you're sitting in, it's going to cost you $10. It's the same Coke, but that's, it's not the basketball game's fault. You can just not drink one there if you want. You can have one at McDonald's before or after. And we're going to be, I don't know, what are the regulations like in Canada? Is it universal or does it depend on I forget, is it a provinces there or it's not states? Provinces.
No, it's provinces. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
What are the standards for plumbing, like licensure and stuff like that? I mean, the
wonderful thing about no, it's not at all. The beautiful thing about Canada is they have basically a universal system, with the exception of Quebec because they're the French and they make everything difficult. But we have the Canadian Plumbing Code, which is taught in every province. The apprenticeship system is all the same. It's this many hours. It's this much time in school. Blah blah blah. It's basically a 4-year. 6,500 hours that you need to get across Canada. And then the codes change just a little bit depending on, like, there's some nuances for BC or Saskatchewan or Ontario or Newfoundland just based on sort of our weather.
Okay. That makes sense.
And some of the stuff that we have to do. And so because I am they call it a red seal when you get, and I think there's like 22 red seal trades, like a mechanic or electrician or a baker or a millwright or that sort of thing. I can work anywhere in Canada with that license. It's like I still have to buy a business license and all the rest of that stuff, but I can show up and say, here's my thing, and they're like, here's your license, off you go. Now, it's not quite that simple, but because government is involved and they're all stupid and you know what I mean, the bureaucrats ruin everything, but that's how it's supposed to work.
Okay.
And that's pretty, in its simplest form, that's exactly how I could move out to where Turbo is and show up with and say, here it is, and they're like, here's your business license, off you go.
Gotcha.
Type of thing.
That's cool.
Without any questions. And that's the problem with the States, is you guys are just like it's from one state to the other, it's bananas.
It's wild. I mean, yeah. We had, at one of the shops I worked at, we had a plumber come from Canada, and because it's Oregon to Canada, it's pretty similar. It's 4-year program. You have to have a certain number of hours. It's not just like, well, I worked, my dad was a plumber and I worked there on the summers growing up. So like now I get to be a plumber. It sounds like it's pretty similar to Canada. And when that Canadian plumber came over, he just had to take a test and they're like, great, here's your license for Oregon. I've had plumbers come from Texas, for example. They've been plumbing in Texas for 10 years, and Oregon was like, that's nice. You have to start all over as a year one apprentice, as if you've never done anything before. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. It can be frustrating
crazy
for people moving. Yeah. And then ratio, I don't know if you guys have ratio there, but we've got the initial ratios. You've got to have 2 journeyman plumbers for 1 apprentice.
Ours is in Alberta. So it goes by province. It changes, but in Alberta, it's the exact opposite. 1 journeyman can do 2 apprentices.
And that's going to help
train 2 apprentices.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's, yeah.
It is the internet, and I'll get some stupid ass comment on that.
Yeah.
But I can train 2 apprentices at sort of in the same time period.
Well, and that's the only way you're ever going to be able to keep up. You've got to be able to bring up more than you are. I'm like, if you have a ratio of 2 to 1, we're never going to catch up. It's like impossible.
And I know it's a problem in the States, and it's a problem up here, because those guys, they said, well, we don't have apprentice. They call them technicians. Like, that's how everybody gets around it now. Is they're technicians, so they're not being trained. They're not being, you know what I mean? Like, they're not developing their career. They're literally just punching a clock, and they sort of skirt the provincial bylaw, I guess you want to call it, by saying we only have the 2 apprentices, and the rest are just, they're the technicians.
Yeah,
they're nothing. We don't, and they get paid the same. Like, most of them, I mean, it's happening quite a bit up here. They're like, they get paid on their sales.
Okay.
Like, we'll pay you $18 an hour, and we will, give you a commission of like 8% of whatever you sell during the week. So you better get out there and sell it.
Yeah.
Which is why we're so busy, because these dudes show up on an install that's like 2 or 3 years old, and like, oh yeah, it's fried. You need a new one. And the customer's like, what? No, see this? And they, say, they literally have no idea what they're talking about. The stories I hear from the clients are insane.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they said that this little thing here is. I'm like, well, let's just, let's change the capacitor on your furnace motor and see you later. Like, that was it. I'm like, that was it. That'll cost you, our minimum charge, $512 or $480 for whatever, and another $45 for the capacitor. Have a nice life. And they're like, you are a plumber for life. I'm like, you're welcome. Because the last guy just tried to sell us, $12,000 in HVAC equipment, a new furnace, a new air conditioner, a new humidifier, blah 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 blah, and a new tankless water heater type of thing. And like, honestly, it does us all a disservice, because they think that they're just walking in there to be like, oh man, it's like going to the mechanic with your vehicle.
Yeah.
It needs the engine. It needs the oil change. So like, oh, bro, this thing's a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Like, look at this brand new car. It's only $80,000. I will give it to you for 1.9% finance.
Yeah.
Right. And off you go.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a huge problem for the consumer. I've couched it with my boys, is like, listen, if you play this right, and I did read an article that substantiates this, that in a decade or so, the average plumber that knows what he's doing will be making somewhere between $300,000 and $450,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because no one's going into it.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, your Coke analogy is just, you're going to find somebody else. There ain't nobody else. So it's me or nothing, sister.
Yeah, and it's, the worker is not responsible for the supply and demand. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not the same thing as a monopoly. It's not the same. You know what I mean? It's not the same as buying everything in the area, giving people no other choice, and saying, here's the price. Because, I mean, to me, that's just totally different. That's totally different. It's not comparable. This is someone choosing to learn a trade that solves an essential function to society, and they're going to be in demand. And the only way, I mean, unless the way you book your calls and take your customers is you just start with the A last names and work your way till you get till Z Like you have to, you got to use economics to do it. Like
Yeah.
someone tell me someone out there who's going to not take the calls that are paying the most.
No, exactly right. You're
I
right.
mean, maybe
100%.
I think I find a lot of people in the trades, they care about the trades, right? There's a part of it that they're mechanically inclined, or they like solving problems, or like helping people. So yeah, I think almost everyone who's been doing it for a while, you help out that person that you didn't really need to, because you've made money on other calls. That's not why you make or charge what you do on those other calls, but you charge what the right price is. And then there's this old lady who really is
I
in a
agree with you
bad situation,
100%.
and yeah, you're like, hey, I got a scratch and dent water heater that the last guy didn't want. Why don't I just, I'm not that busy today. I can just put it in for you. Just pay the cost of the heater and we'll call it good.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be enough to serve the entire society. Like you can't get to all the plumbing calls doing it that way.
No, and you won't. And if you do it that way, which lots of people is that, we've talked about that race to the bottom before.
Yeah.
If you just give it away to everybody because you need the business, then you're cutting your own throat. And you then, when the little old lady does show up, you're like, listen, lady, this tank's $6,000 because I got to fix my truck and I got a rent payment and my wife wants new shoes and the mortgage payment's due and I need $6,000.
Yeah.
If you, like you said, bill it properly all the way through and have all those other things covered, then when the little lady or the single lady that needs a hand with something, you're like, no problem, we got this. It's on me. Have a lovely day. And
Yeah.
the tears flow and you feel like a hero and you walk off and you're back to the next one saying, no, this hot water heater is $4,000, bro.
Yeah.
Because that's how you got to run it.
Yeah. And I mean, it costs what it costs. Like it just costs what it costs. If you want a professional result, you got to pay for a professional.
Yeah, that's the differentiation that we're trying to make in my little world, is because there's some national companies that have shown up in Calgary, and there are some private equity firms that are sniffing around, and that's what you said. I mean, their intention eventually is to create the monopoly, and there's the I forgot their name now. Reliance is one of them. They're all over Canada. And they're trying to buy up every mom and pop that they can to, what I mean, eventually say, well, now you have to use us because there's us and there's Baker, and Baker's way too busy, so you're gonna pay our rates no matter what if you want this thing fixed.
Yeah.
And that's what I have a problem with, because they are not focused on the trades.
No.
And Manny, I don't know if you follow Manny with the Construction Podcast. He went on a rant there the other day, which I agree with. Lots of these so-called trade groups are using government funding to feed their own pockets and not actually promote the trades, not actually give back to the trades. They're like, oh yeah, we'll get this many applicants to, because we need tradespeople, but they're not training them. They just sort of show them up in the door and out the other. They're just, okay, well, you didn't work out, or we placed you with somebody and, no training attached. You're just the number to them that they can, show the government that, oh no, we had 150 people go through here this month.
Yeah.
We're killing it. We're helping the trades. And yet the numbers continue to decline, right?
Yeah. It is. I know that there's another part of it that's attached, but I was reading a really interesting article about, because there's definitely a start of a resurgence with like the millennials, and I know that there's a little bit of crossover with influencers, so we won't touch the third rail. But you know what? Despite where that can or can't go, it is creating some additional awareness and people at least considering or looking at and seeing those options that wouldn't even have thought of it otherwise, honestly.
Yeah.
There's also the salesman of it, and using a certain product and the product placement and all that, that part's there too. But it does give an opportunity for people that want to get exposed to it otherwise, to see that, which is cool.
It's not all negative. Like there's billboards all over in my town in Calgary that are like, join the trades, join this, join that. So it does offer some exposure, and there are people that, oh, look at that, you got somebody jumping on your back.
6-year-old. Sanders. That's Sanders. He's like, hey, Dad, how long's this phone call going to go?
Tell him 10 more minutes, and
Yeah,
then
10
we'll
more
let you go
minutes.
play catch with the boys.
Yeah.
But you're right. Any publicity is good publicity. That's as the saying goes. There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah. Yep.
But I do think if and I guess that's the message that I keep trying to portray. Like, if you do this properly and actually gain that knowledge and skill and expertise, like, the world will be yours, because there's so few in there's 600 plumbers in Calgary that advertise.
Wow.
And we compete with four of them. You know what I mean? Like my competition is 3 other companies.
Wow.
And one of them's, 2 of them are huge, and one of them's sort of like me, a little bit bigger. But we, to be perfectly blunt, murder them all because of, we're streamlined and we're quick and we know what we're doing, and you know what I mean? We provide the service that they want.
Well,
and so
you've learned what murdering means, because they're in there thinking, oh, if I undercut Baker, man, I just undercut him and I got the sale. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna make no money. Like, congratulations, you didn't charge what you're worth, and you got the job.
And part of the reason that we only compete with 3 or 4 companies is, a decade ago there were 12, and either they got bought up or went bankrupt, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of what you talked about, sort of the generational problem where they, the old guy was like, I'm done. There's nobody else to take it over. So I'm just come buy my, and I've done it. Come buy my tools. I'm like, I'll come buy your shit. Yeah. Right. It's all, whatever. Give me, through that pile of wrenches, give me $50, so they're all yours. I'm like, sweet, type of thing.
Yeah.
So it is happening. And like you say, if you undercut yourself, then you have to do a shitty job. And sort of the world that I work in the commercial service world, if you do a shitty job, it gets exposed really quickly, like within a month or 2. You
can't get away with that. Yeah.
No. And we've had, the truth is just about everybody that I have worked for over the last 20 years, 25 years has fired me at some point, or sort of, you know what I mean? We'll call it cheated on me. They're like, Baker's a bit expensive and he's a bit cocky and he's a bit rough around the edges. But so we're going to try these other guys because they have been banging on my door to do some work. Right. And so we won't hear from them for a month or 2 or 6 months or a year. You're like, oh, whatever happened to so-and-so? What's going on? And then all of a sudden we get the frantic phone call. Dude, like, this is how you walk in there. I'm like, I didn't do any of this. Who the hell you had in here? And that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's... They're like, I know. Sorry, bro. We cheated on you. I'm like, well, it's going to cost you now.
Yeah. I have to fix their problem plus charge what I would normally charge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so every single one of them, without exception, has come back to us and said, listen, man, we sort of went off the reservation for a little while, but dude, you and I are married. Like, there's no getting out of it now. We love you. We love what you do. Just, make sure you answer the phone call or answer the phone when we call. I'm like, yep, that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So in some ways that's a little bit better.
It is. Cause if you want to talk about power dynamics, that's what you actually, you hold the hammer. And that doesn't mean you're a dick about it or you wave it in their face or any of that stuff, but they know when they go to bed at night that there's a problem that, at any time we're coming. Yep. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, you know what? He might be a bit more expensive than the other guys, but when we have a problem, that's who we need. And that's who we want, because he's Johnny on the spot and he's going to make it happen for us. And, and that's the beauty of the commercial world, is that when they need it done, they just, like, if a hotel has no hot water, they're literally losing $10,000 an hour because of all the room refunds. You go to a hotel and you go up in the morning and no shower, you're like, I ain't paying for this room. Yeah. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yep.
and
Yeah,
here's the
I don't
voucher.
have any commercial like yeah, yeah. I don't have any
Yeah,
commercial experience in the trades, but I was commercial business to business prior. It was carpet and floor cleaning, but it
yep,
is a totally different those commercial accounts. And depending on the market you're in, like you said earlier, if you're cutting corners, like all the building managers talk to each other. They're part of like groups together. You
yeah,
know what
they
I mean?
are.
They're having breakfast once a month.
Yep,
And
yep,
they're saying, yeah, Baker's expensive, and they're like, yeah, but I don't ever have to have him back to fix it, or
yep,
or they're saying, yeah, this guy, he gave me a smoking deal, and they're like, oh, well, watch out for that because he did the same thing to me, and then I had to have Baker come fix it, and they're like, oh,
yep.
well, I don't know if the savings is worth that. I mean, the answer is obviously no,
The
but
answer is no.
there's no, and you always get a new building manager or a new manager of the hotel or whatever that wants to try to,
Shake
I
it
don't
up.
blame them.
Yep,
They're new.
yep,
It's like, hey, I'm
yep,
new. I got to show how I can save money, show my
yep,
worth. I convinced them to pay me more than the last guy, so now I
yep,
better find some savings. But ultimately, everyone's willing to pay a premium for something. They just haven't all learned what it is yet.
yep,
Um, I didn't know it was trade work before I was in the trades. I would have
yep,
been like, oh, that's an interesting price. I wonder if an unlicensed person will come in here and do it for cheaper. But now that I've
yep.
seen the other side and I know it, I'm like, yeah, no thanks. I don't I don't care who's going to do it for cheaper. This is not something I'm going to do on the cheap.
No,
I'll save that money like by
we're cutting
eating at Taco
your
Bell.
grass,
Yeah.
yeah, or whatever. Like
Some yeah.
we'll hire the cheap landscaper, or
Yeah.
the cheap parking lot cleaner. In fact, I should tell you, interesting. You talk about those building managers. I got a call from one of my favorite ones today, and tomorrow. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go uh, excavate some bees
Oh
out of a
wow.
out of a out of a ceiling. They got a
Okay.
huge bee problem,
Oh
and like
my
I knew who to
God. Oh,
call.
because you're an
I'll call.
apiarist. You're an
Yeah,
apiarist.
yeah. I said
That's cool.
he's like, have you ever done it? I'm like, well, no, but you know, how
Sounds fun.
I don't
It
know.
probably
I
sounds
don't know how
awesome to
hard.
you.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll go give it a try. Whatever the hell, we'll
Yeah.
give it a shot.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
tomorrow afternoon, I'm gonna go get paid to uh, to save the bees.
That's
Hopefully,
yeah, that's awesome. So will you like smoke them and
yeah,
rehouse them or what is that the plan?
that's the
Okay. Dang.
plan. We'll see what I mean. We'll see what happens, but I have no
That's
idea.
amazing.
The guy I talked to, his name is Zoran. Super nice guy, but had a bit of an accent. So I'm like, listen, bud, we'll just come out. I'll bring my little bee suit and my smoker and some some transport stuff. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll put a plan together and figure out how we're gonna make it work. So that'll be
That
fun.
that's awesome. I'm sure I mean, I'm hoping we all get a chance to see bits and pieces of that on your
Yeah,
Instagram.
of course, man.
Yeah, okay.
We'll light it up. We'll light it up a bit, depending on how many mistakes I make. But anyway, it'll
Yeah.
be fun.
Well, you know what? I want to touch on that too because you've done this series lately of like show your failures, or you had a way cooler name for it. I don't remember what it was, but I think that is
Failure week.
failure week. Yeah, I think that is something like, I mean, talk to anyone that's a professional at what they've done and say, hey, did you learn more when you won, or did you learn
No.
more when you lost? Like, but it is one of those things where it's like sometimes not just plumbers but trades or any profession, you're so quick to like tear someone down. They're like, show a picture of their work for the day, and it's like so negative, like, oh, you put that fitting there, or you did it that way, like, do you even know what you're doing? And it's like, it was such a cool, especially that giant water heater that went down the stairs and slammed into the wall, or like, I
We
mean,
fixed it today. We fixed the wall today.
it looked good, honestly. Did you do the drywall?
Pete did it. Yeah, one of my
Yeah,
boys did the drywall. So
it's hard to find drywallers, at least for us. Like, that's not like a common overlap skill. I don't find very many plumbers that are interested in slash any good at doing drywall. You usually got to find somebody else.
usually, truth be told, I've dented a few drywalls in my day. So it's just easier to figure out how to do it yourself as opposed to try and find a nitwit drywaller to show up
Get
in
a
the time.
sub.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, dude, I'll be there in like 4 weeks. I'm like, dude, it needs to be tomorrow because
Yeah.
people are, yeah, every time they walk past it, they're like, yeah, Baker did that. You see that fucking hole in the
Yeah.
wall? That's Bob Baker.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what happened here with the drywall? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a plumber. A plumber did that drywall. It's the most expensive drywalling ever.
Yeah.
Um, but I think sharing failures is something that's cool and helps with the community too, because in a time when we're trying to get as many new people to do it as possible, we don't want to be like, hey, be brand new, be trying, be discovering. Also, don't make any mistakes.
Don't
We're
make
gonna
any
rip you
mistakes.
apart. Like,
Yeah.
it's an intimidating thing for a lot of people to get into the trade. I mean, definitely my hat's off to, I've met a number of young individuals or even older people who found it later that just aren't scared and can get right in, but it can be an intimidating subculture and community to be a part of. And the stakes are high. You know, you could flood someone's house. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like you got my order wrong at Taco Bell, because let's be honest, if you get it wrong, it's still, you know, meat, cheese, and a tortilla. And I'm just going
I
to
got the cheesy fries and
yeah, I'm not even
I got the cheesy fries instead of the taco fries.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's cool to kind of make that culture and the community around like, hey, like, let's build each other up. Hey, that looks really good how you did that. Did you think about doing this other part this way? You know, that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about, you know, it still should be rough and tumble and you bust each other's balls. And I'm not talking about guys who, you know, it's kind of fun to get that, like, hey, it's funny that that's how they do plumbing where you're from. Like, that's not even called plumbing where I'm from and stuff like that. And we don't have time now, but, you know, not even talking about drains, whether or not you should be doing drain cleaning and who does or doesn't do drain cleaning. That's a whole nother topic. That's been fascinating for me as a non-tradesperson to just see how passionate people can get about both sides of that. And I'll be perfectly honest, as a layman, I'm just like, what are you guys even talking about? Like, it's not all the same thing. So that's a funny one too. But I don't know. I appreciate that. You know, you have like you said, you know, you're gruff or like you can be a dick, but it was today or yesterday. It's never mean spirited is the thing. Like, that's the difference.
No.
It's where you're coming from with it. Being direct is not the same as being mean. And I guess it's just, you know, I think it was when you're talking about maybe the family thing, but it's just, there's a huge difference between being mean spirited or mean on purpose and just, well, the guy just sounds gruff. Like, not everyone needs to be soft around the edges.
No. Oh yeah, I was talking about being nice, right? I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, just be nice. Like, stop being mean. I'm like, I'm not being mean. This is my experience. And if you continue doing what you're doing, you're going to have a really bad day at some point. So stop doing what you're doing. I'm actually being kind to you by giving you this advice. Whether you take it or not is up to you. But I mean, the chances are very high that you're going to mess something up.
Yeah.
Whether that's plumbing wise or in your life, like, you know, the decisions that we make have a massive impact on what we do.
Yeah.
And so I do get called mean a lot, or I need to be nicer. I'm like, I'm not, I won't be nice. I try to be kind.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the difference between those two things, then you shouldn't be telling me to be nice. Like, you should
just stop
open
following
up a dictionary.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to not follow.
There's lots of those guys that say, you know, say what they say, and then I'm unfollowing them, like, good. And then, you know, they unfollow, but every, you know, couple of weeks they're chiming in. I'm like, you can leave, but you just can't stay.
Yeah.
You can't stay away.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it's a good point though. It's one of my favorite books is Radical Candor, and it's the difference between radical candor and ruinous empathy. And the way the author explains it is radical candor is like, it's just telling it like it is to help you do better and have a better experience. Ruinous empathy is, well, I'll be nice. I won't let them know that they messed that up.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to bite them later, and they're also going to keep doing it wrong. So it just makes everything worse because they're trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Versus saying, you know, in a professional, it can be direct. It doesn't need to be mushy. Hey, dude, like, that is the wrong way to do that. You have it backwards. You need to flip it around and do it this way, and that's the only way you can do it moving forward. Like, there's not a mean or nice about that. It's just a fact that's going to help them.
Yeah, I have, you know, when my boys were sort of apprentices, I'm like, it's my way or nothing. Like, this is how you do it. And I'll let you know when you can offer your suggestion. And then, you know, you sort of get to that point. I'm like, okay, what do you think?
Yeah.
How do you think we should do this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we should do this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, well, number 1 and 2 are stupid because of this reason and this reason.
Yeah.
So do number 3. And it's still their idea, though. They're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it my way. I mean, it's option 3, but it's still what I suggested we do. Totally. And then it gets to the point where I'm like, you figure it out. And then I show up and I'm like, well, what could you have done different? You know, well, this didn't go the way I wanted to, and that didn't go the way I wanted to. I'm like, all right, so the next one is going to be, you're going to try these other options. and so you, like you say, it's sort of training them through their own experiences and giving them the opportunity to make their own decisions and feel like they have some skin in the game, um,
Yeah.
without sort of just throwing them out in the wild, wild west and hoping they don't blow something up or kill somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
So it's a bit of a delicate balance for that, to sort of to do that. And I've made lots of mistakes in it, but you know, like I said, I'll go back to what I said. Unless you can explain why your option is better than mine, then we're going to do it my way. And
Yep.
Isaiah certainly has, and Peter's starting to come along where he's like, no, this is why we should do it this way. I'm like, you know what? That actually makes sense. Why don't we try it your way? And then off they go. And
Yeah.
we just, sort of discuss it after of, well, if we'd done it your way, this would have been better, but my way, this and this was better. I'm like, all right, well, you've learned something new. Use it
Yeah.
in your next adventure, your next side quest, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
think it kind of gives me an idea of the concept of everything we've been talking about, the private equity and building the trades up and everything else, is like the concept of giving more than you take.
Yep.
And
like there's a moment where you got to take, and that might
Yes.
be years, right? Like you say,
Yep.
like I need this, I need this, I need this. This has to be for me because this is the stage I'm at. But sooner or later, you need to get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm taken care of. How do I give back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're exactly right, because you can't give from an empty cup.
Yeah.
The analogy they always talk about, when the masks drop down in the plane, you got to
Yeah.
put yours on before your kids. That has to happen. You can't just be like, I'm a brand new plumber and I just started my company and I don't know what I'm doing, and also I'm going to charge almost nothing. Well, okay, you'll be able to do that for a couple months, I guess. That will be nice.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But when you put the time and effort like you have, or my situation's a little different, but I'm, in a situation where I am able to give more than I can take. And I think, ultimately I'm grateful for the privately owned shops that still have that mentality, for the trade, for the people they're investing in, for the customers. It's like, yeah, I charge a lot, but I'm giving you like the best experience you'll get,
Yeah.
the best quality, the cleanest install, the highest, level products, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's something that's cool to be able to do, I guess, just in the trade space.
Yeah. And if you're, and most of the people that I sort of associate with on here are smaller contractors, smaller, business owners. And that's the secret to being different, is just exactly what you said. I can provide you the best products, the best service, the most timely service at, not the most competitive price.
Yeah.
And if you want the most competitive price, then those other three things that I just mentioned are going to fall off. And whether you can get those guys, to come back,
Yeah.
and fix their shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's where we pick up most of our stuff. Is we're like, no, we made our money and we're out.
Yeah.
And we're not coming back.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you got a couple of minutes left here.
Yeah.
What did you were saying in our little offline discussion there that your experience, that you experienced somebody selling out to or not selling out, but selling to a private equity firm, and what was your experience was bad. Why was your experience bad?
So for me, it was bad, mostly because I felt like the private equity group misrepresented how things are going to be. Things won't change. You'll still get to run the business. And the way my experience of it was, that was true for about 10 months. And then it was like a timer went off, and it was like, change this process, switch to this retirement plan, use this software instead. Here's your new healthcare and benefits package. By the way, it's worse and more expensive.
Yeah.
And it was just, the company's doing fine. They're growing, they're adding trades, but it just wasn't for me anymore in the role that I was in. I didn't want to continue to be a part of it.
And you were you were sort of left, you were an employee of that company, if I understand.
Yeah,
right?
I was a senior plumbing manager at that company. I had been there for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was my introduction to the trades. I learned a ton. It was invaluable. very grateful for the time there. But, you know, for me, it was like the way I described it that made the most sense to me is like when I got on the cruise ship, I loved the destination. And then the destination changed and where I wanted to go changed.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make any sense to continue that way, you know? Like it was originally going to Hawaii and I was like, I want to go to Hawaii. And they're like, actually, it's going to Alaska. And it's like, that's okay because I don't want to go there or Hawaii anymore either. So like enjoy your Alaska cruise. I'm gonna go a different way. So that was the main thing for me. It was just and I could and just some roles it came to be after I left, but I saw the writing on the wall just that they weren't going to exist anymore. And that just felt like a shame to lose that internally instead of having it centralized. So again, if you can do it well and actually be efficient with it, I understand the business reasons for it, but it's just not something I could still feel as excited about being a part of as I used to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, just as to everybody that's sort of listening to this, you know, there's lots of room and lots of space for the smaller contractor, but you got to provide that value because and that response time and sort of that connection to your customer, because that is what's the difference between you and, you know, the conglomerate that's trying to, you know, eat everybody along the way so that they can create their own little monopoly to eventually, you know, I mean, the end game for those guys is to drive everybody out.
It's either to drive everybody out or it's a short term. It's the two strategies of those. They either want to drive everyone out or they just want to wring as much out of it as they can and sell it again. Those are the two ways that make the most money. And the short term one is more dangerous than the long term one, in my opinion, because it's even less concerned with the overall success of the company or the investment into the employees.
But you guys
that one.
No, go ahead. Sorry. No, go.
Yeah, I already forgot.
I was just going to say, I mean, that's happening in the States right now. I just read the article on Red Lobster.
Yeah.
Like they're closing all their locations because they can't make money anymore. But they sold for like multi-millions of dollars to whoever they sold to.
Yep.
And that company stripped out their land assets and said, okay, now you're renting to us because of the land that you own on. And so instead of owning everything, they got to pay, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent. So they can't hire the right people. They can't buy the good product anymore. So they, you know, it starts to, you know, wane on their quality.
Yep.
And now they're like, well, we're done because nobody's coming back because we suck.
Yep.
And the guys at bottom are like, sweet, now we get to sell the land. So
and because of how the structuring works, they're not liable for the bankruptcy for any amounts due. Like the private equity group doesn't have to pay any of it out.
No.
And it's even worse if it's an entity with like pensions because they're not liable to pay out the pensions. Those go under government. So your taxes are paying for the pensions that the private equity group made the company insolvent to pay. And congratulations, you get to pay them with your taxes because the private equity group that's manages billions and billions of dollars, they don't have to pay that pension because technically they're not liable for it.
Yeah.
So
because they stripped it all apart, right, and made it two different things. And that's sort of the short term. I don't know when that purchase was bought, but I'm going to say it was just before COVID, and they, you know, internally made all those changes, and now 4 or 5 years later, like Red Lobster's done because we can't operate anymore. We can't afford to operate because we have too many expenses.
Yeah, it gets even scarier if you read about healthcare ones or I'm blanking on the term, but care for the elderly. What are those places called? I can't think. Old people
hospice.
So I can think of. Yeah, hospice. If you see what hospice or healthcare, it's even more disturbing than just money and pensions. If anyone is more interested, I love talking about it, but also there's an amazing book called the title's Plunder. And it's written by a guy who works in the government for the antitrust agency. So like he knows what he's talking about. He's not just someone who's self-educating and the book's fascinating as far as how it works. But
yeah, we don't have that. I mean, we spend way too much on healthcare. It's all run by government. So we're not necessarily like nobody's going, like we don't have any private hospitals.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, which creates its own sets of problems, but
sure.
that's neither here nor there, but
yeah.
Anyway, I think they're going to kick us out here in about a
Okay.
minute and a half.
Yeah, Anders is
Any
ready anyway.
any final thoughts, my man?
No, I mean, I just, educate yourself and then, give more than you take, honestly. And a really effective way to do that is to educate yourself, draw your own conclusions. If you think that private equity is awesome, good for you for researching and coming to it. But yeah, educate yourself and give more than you take. And especially for the trades, think about the future of your family or your children. If you have children, like they need more people to go in the trades too, because they're going to have a house that has plumbing in it.
Yep. No, the technology that's coming needs to be serviced no matter what they say. And the beautiful thing about sort of the trade world is AI isn't going to fix everything.
No.
In fact,
No.
if we've looked, I mean, the interesting thing is they're talking about how AI is going to fix everything. And I come from a generation when computers were going to fix everything, right? And the computer industry, created its own monster that everything needs to be, fixed by computer techs, on and on and on and on. And I have no doubt that AI is going to fall into sort of that same category. Yeah, it solves, these sectors' problems, but we just created a whole new sector of people that have to deal with AI problems.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just a tool. It can't fix everything.
No, 100%.
Yeah, well,
all right, my man.
I appreciate the time. Happy to chat any other time if we have a burning topic in the future. Yeah, and I can't wait to see how the bees go.
Yeah, it'll be fun tomorrow.
Yeah,
it will be.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Okay, thanks, bud. Out.
Out.
I think he's out. There he goes. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. We do have a couple of topics coming up. Robbie's going to show up here in a couple of weeks. We're gonna do another one with Dennis, and of course we're gonna do another one with John Thompson on the Akanaki, which would be super cool. Like I said on the other, I think I said it in a story. I don't know when I said it, but we're gonna try and drill down a bit more into keep it a bit more streamlined. Anyway, thanks for everybody for showing up and contributing. And listen, if you have a burning question that you want to chat about or feel it's important that you want to sling around, and DM me and we'll set it up. And I hate the fact that I got to pick a better day because we're crimping on Casey's there in Philly. I feel bad for sort of having it at the same time, so we have to change it up a little bit. Maybe Wednesdays, because I know Plumbing Perspectives on Thursdays, and so we want to try and respect everybody doing their thing and trying their hardest, and I'm no different. Anyway, thanks for the ears, thanks for the eyeballs, and it won't be long till I'm shooting my mouth off again. Those are, as always, my thoughts, not yours. Thanks for joining us in the barn. Till next time, people.